Welcome to the Construction Leading Edge podcast. In this episode, we're going to be talking about how to scale your construction business without sacrificing profit, control, or freedom. What if you could actually scale your business without working more hours, without taking on more risk? What if you could scale your business sustainably and actually increase your profit margins, have more control, and work fewer hours? What if you're trying to scale the business and you are about to step in, or maybe you're stuck in a couple of pitfalls? So we're going to be talking about some pitfalls to avoid. This is a talk that I gave at Job Tread Connect in January 2026. You're listening to the Construction Leading Edge podcast, where we're all about systematizing your construction business so you can have more freedom, more impact, and more wealth. My name is Todd DeWalt. I'm your host and the founder of the Construction Leading Edge podcast. So let's get into it. You want to grow your business, but you don't want to work 20 more hours a week. In this talk, in this podcast episode, I'm going to talk about how scaling doesn't have to mean more stress. It does not have to mean thinner margins or longer hours. And actually, I'll show you a few keys that our clients have used to scale their business while actually reducing stress, increasing margins, and believe it or not, working fewer hours. So in the next 25 minutes or so, here's what you're going to get. You're going to learn about 3 scaling pitfalls that too many builders, remodelers, commercial GCs, and trade contractors fall into. There are traps that they get stuck in that are very common. They seem like great ideas as they try to scale their business. Talk about how and why these traps, these pitfalls, quietly erode margin, capacity, and control. I'll share 2 hidden metrics that indicate if your business is actually ready for growth, and then I'll lay out a couple of next steps if you want to get some data and assess how ready your company is to grow. But let me check in with you. I'm curious if any of these sound familiar. Details are falling through the cracks. You are spending too much time on low-value tasks or putting out fires. Too many problems land in your lap. You don't have time to focus on the big picture. Your stress level isn't where you like it to be. Maybe you're losing sleep at night, or you're frustrated and you're taking work home. Profitability isn't where it should be. You're not making the kind of money you should be based on the stress and the risk that you're taking. And maybe you feel like a visionary who's stuck in the day-to-day. Well, if any of these resonate with you, or maybe for some of you, you're checking all of those boxes, this is going to help you. But before we get into those pitfalls, did you know there's a company that's been studying why contractors fail for the past decade or so? It's an incredibly depressing company, I think, but the FMI Corp has studied hundreds of successful contractors that ended in financial crisis, and they came up with a list of the top 5 root causes of why contractors fail. We're going to talk about that study in a few minutes. Who this is for: custom home builders, large-scale remodelers, commercial GCs, primarily for those 3. Also, a lot of these scaling pitfalls will apply to trade contractors. If you don't know who I am, my name is Todd DeWalt. I'm the host of the podcast here, the Construction Leading Edge podcast. I have spent the past 30 years in construction, the first 20 or so leading project teams and companies. And for the past 8 or 10 years, I've been coaching construction business owners on how to systematize their business. You're listening to the podcast that's been around since 2014. And let's jump into those pitfalls. So for a lot of owners, this is the default plan when it comes to scaling. They think, we just need to hire more people. If I could just find more people, that would solve all of my problems. Growing the team, hiring people, this is the default plan. It's very common to think, they look around, I have projects to manage, estimates to get out, selections to make, schedules to create. I just need to hire an estimator. I just need a PM. I just need a super. I just need a selections coordinator, and that'll fix it. And sometimes that works, but a lot of times it just multiplies the chaos. I'll explain why. Here's the truth. Employees, specifically, only succeed when the systems are in place to support them. People succeed only when the systems are in place to support them. Think of it like a 3-legged stool. The first leg of that stool is an accountability chart. Here's what it does. The accountability chart provides clarity on who is responsible for what. Specifically, who is accountable, who is responsible for what results. There's a big difference between delegating results and delegating tasks. So the accountability chart makes it clear who is responsible for what results. It eliminates confusion and duplicate work. It creates accountability. It is one of the structures you need if you want a culture of accountability. Another interesting benefit of the accountability chart is that it identifies organizational weaknesses by revealing who should own an issue. And it clarifies for your people how they contribute to the vision of the company. Okay, that's what it does. Very briefly, here's what it looks like. This is an accountability chart for a large builder that we've worked with. Describes the outcomes that each role is accountable for. It creates a single point of accountability for key parts of the business. This is very important. A single point of accountability for key parts of the business. Years ago, I heard somebody say, the best way to starve a horse is to have two people feed it. And if you've ever had two people responsible for something, you know what I'm talking about. So starving horse syndrome is when you have two people responsible for something. So you must have a single point of accountability for key parts of the business. One person who's accountable for that result. One of our clients likes to use it like a filter. He printed his accountability chart, slapped it on the wall, and when calls or emails or issues would come in, he would use it like a filter and just find out who is responsible for this. Is this a warranty issue? Is this a pre-construction issue? Is it a selections issue? It is an operational issue, and use it like a filter. So before you grow, before you hire somebody, you must have an accountability chart. This is the organizational blueprint for your business. It is the foundation of your business. One of our clients said, this is like the foundation of a house. It's the concrete and the rebar that the business is built on. So before you grow, create your accountability chart. If you're watching this video, you may recognize this guy. His name is Kellen Moore, the offensive coordinator of the Philadelphia Eagles, who won the 2025 Super Bowl. And he's holding a playbook. Every offensive coordinator, every head coach on the sidelines is holding a playbook. And that is the second leg of this stool of the things you need to have in place before you hire somebody. The second leg of the stool is a playbook. Every pro team has a playbook. Let me say it this way. Every professional team needs a playbook that explains this is how we do it. This is how we do sales. This is how we do pre-construction. This is how we hand off projects. This is how we do quality control. And you may be thinking, this is how we do it. Wasn't that a hip hop song from the 90s by a guy named Montel Jordan? And you would be exactly right. And maybe you're even singing that song in your head. So you need a step-by-step playbook that explains how things get done so that you can train new hires on how they should do it. You can answer questions one last time. This is one of the big benefits of a playbook, is you can answer questions one last time. And I would encourage you, if you find yourself answering the same damn question over and over, grab a Post-it note and write this question on that Post-it note. How can this be the last time I answer this question? Put that on your wall, put it on your laptop, on your computer screen. And when questions come up, think playbook. Another reason to have a playbook is so that steps don't get skipped. Also, so that everybody's doing things the same way. So you have consistency among the team. And a big benefit of having a playbook is so that you can hold people accountable to do things a certain way. The third leg of the stool you need to have before you hire someone is a concept we've developed in recent years called the Big Five. So if you think about a typical job description, and I'm going to show one on the screen here. I spoke at an event a few months ago in Las Vegas. So I thought, let's take a look at a typical job description for a home builder in Vegas. And I apologize if this is yours. I blurred out the company name if you're watching this video, but I'm just going to read through a few of the bullet points on this job description and pick it apart a little bit. So I want you to imagine that you just started as the project manager and think about what are some of the questions you would have about this job. A couple of the things that are on here that make sense, kind of vague, but they make sense. The essential duties and responsibilities of the PM include drives projects' overall flow effectively from inception to completion, review contract and bid documents, assist with project document control, included but not limited to a bunch of things, verify correct drawings are distributed to the field, support the accounting department in monthly billings and collections and follow up on outstanding balances, escalate critical and/or sensitive issues to the senior PM with a recommendation for resolution. And I really like this one at the very bottom. I've seen this several times. Perform additional assignments as required by the needs of the company or as directed by executives. That's basically a blank check. You need to do these 47 things plus be prepared to perform additional assignments as required by the needs of the company. Here are the top questions new hires have. I've been a new hire. I've worked in a lot of different organizations. And these are some questions I have, and according to studies, these are some of the top questions your next new hire has. How will performance be measured? You're going to be measuring my performance. What is the measuring stick for my performance? What does winning look like in this role? If you want to have A players on your team, there's one thing that's common about A players. They want to put points on the board. Therefore, they need to know, what does winning look like in this role? And then ultimately, what really matters? There are 47 bullet points on this job description. The last one said perform additional duties, but what really matters? Is it document control? Is it supporting the accounting department? Is it material ordering? What really matters? Are they all equally important, or are there a couple in there that are the most important? The job description doesn't say it. Unfortunately, the typical job description is good for getting people to day one of employment. And that's not good. The typical job description is not good for getting them to a successful day 90 of employment or a successful day 365 of employment. Typical job description is not good for answering these questions about how will performance be measured, what does winning look like, and what really matters. So that's why we came up with the Big Five. Here's what the Big Five is. The Big Five activities that are leading indicators of success. Let me say this again. Some people struggle with this concept. We're not talking about priorities. We're not talking about goals. We're not talking about lagging indicators of success. We're talking about the Big Five activities for a specific role that are leading indicators of success. A lagging indicator of success is an indicator that it's after the fact, like a P&L report is a lagging indicator. By the time you get the information, there's nothing you can do about it. That's a lagging indicator. We're looking for activities that are leading indicators of success. I'll give some examples in a few minutes. A well-designed Big Five makes it simple to measure how well somebody's doing in their role. Is this person winning? A well-designed Big Five, a well-designed list of the Big Five leading indicators of success makes it simple to measure, is someone winning or not? This list of activities will also provide early indicators of problems. You'll begin to see problems with performance because they're leading indicators. You'll see these problems early while you still have time to do something about it. And a well-designed Big Five increases the likelihood of the desired outcomes that you want for this role. Hey, it's Todd. We'll get back to the episode in just a minute. If you're thinking about growing your construction business, maybe you've been wondering things like, how do I know if my business can handle more work without falling apart? Is now the right time to grow, or should we just stay where we're at? Am I missing something that could blow up if I scale too fast? Do I have the right structure in place to support growth and to be able to grow safely? Maybe you're worried about burning out your team or burning out yourself. You're worried about winning more work, but then losing control of the quality and having that hurt your reputation. Maybe you're concerned about getting stuck in more chaos, having more problems instead of having more freedom, or finding out too late that your systems just weren't strong enough to handle the growth. Well, here's what's surprising. A company studied why successful contractors fail, and they found out two things. Number one, contractors don't starve to death. They get too much work too fast with inadequate resources, and then they run out of cash. The second thing that they learned after studying a couple of hundred successful contractors that failed is that contractors are actually more likely to go bankrupt during a growing economy than during a downturn. So how do you know if your business is ready to scale? How do you know when it's time to hire more team members, to go after another market, to sell more work? Well, that's a big question that a lot of people are grappling with. It's a question I get a lot. So that's why I created an assessment tool to help you answer the question, is your construction business ready to scale? This assessment is free, it's online, and you'll get a customized report showing exactly where your business is strong and where the hidden gaps are that could trip you up. It's the fastest way to get clarity before you put your business and your future at risk. So if you want to take the free assessment to find out, is your construction business ready to scale? The link is in the show notes. Several years ago, we worked with this guy, Alex Gregg, who I'm showing on the screen, custom home builder in Nashville. And when we started working with him, we helped him put together his accountability chart, which is the foundation for the Big Five. And we then built on that and created his Big Five activities. For example, he came up with the Big Five activities that are leading indicators of success for each role on his team. He had them laminated. There are things that need to be done daily, weekly, monthly. These are the Big Five activities that are leading indicators of success. That's the three-legged stool, very briefly. But what happens if one of those legs of the stool is missing? What if you skip a step? What if there's no accountability chart? There's no clearly defined roles. It's not clear what outcomes somebody or a specific role is accountable for. What sort of problems show up when there's no accountability chart? Well, things like details slip through the cracks. Balls get dropped. People step on each other's toes. You have duplicate effort. You have multiple people doing the same thing, which can lead to customers and trade partners and employees doing the mom versus dad thing, where they just keep asking people the same question until they get the answer they want. And then you have clients and subcontractors getting different messages from people, and you just get a lot of confusion. When there's no accountability chart, you end up with finger pointing and conversations like, why didn't you do that? Well, I didn't know it was my responsibility. Or you did it last time, and I asked you if you wanted me to do it the last time, and you said no. You get this finger pointing when problems show up. And if there are questions about who is accountable for what, who do they have to ask? They have to call the boss, right? Now, let's take a look at what if there's no playbook? There's no playbook, no documented process. There's nothing to train people on. What kind of problems show up? Well, here's what I found. When there's not a documented process, when there's not a playbook, people do things how they want. And you end up with multiple people doing things different ways, which means one guy handles his schedules a certain way, the other guy does it a different way. You have daily logs coming in different formats. Customers are having very different experiences with different project managers. When there's no playbook, steps get skipped. And when there's a question about how something should be done, what do? They have to call the owner. What if there's no Big Five? There's just a 50-point job description. They all look equally important, and it's not clear what they should be doing and what's the highest priority. What kind of problems show up when there's no Big Five? Well, people spend time on things that don't matter. They think, well, it's on the job description. Maybe it's up toward the top of the list, down toward the bottom of the list. They have to guess at what is most important. They don't know. So they spend time on things that don't matter. Maybe they do the easy stuff, or they gravitate toward the things that they're really good at. And by the time problems show up, it's too late to do anything about it. And once again, if there's a question, they have to call the boss, right? And then think about this question. What if you hire someone and then you try to figure all of this stuff out? What if you just rush to hire somebody because you think you just need to hire people and you don't have clearly defined roles and responsibilities, you don't have a playbook for them to follow, and you don't have a Big Five? Then what happens? Maybe you've already experienced that. Maybe you're experiencing that right now. One of those hidden metrics I talked about, I go into more depth on this in the previous podcast episode, is the owner interruption count, the OIC. The OIC is the total number of texts, emails, phone calls, and questions you have to respond to every day. That's your owner interruption count. It's not unusual for me to talk to people who, I talked to a guy today who said, I get 40 or 50 phone calls a day. Just phone calls, plus texts, plus emails, plus in-person questions. If your OIC, if your owner interruption count is too high, that tells you your company is designed to run on you. Another way to say it, if your owner interruption count is too high, that means your business is designed to fail without you. And that's not a time management problem. That's a design problem. So watch out for that pitfall that says we just need to hire more people. You actually have some work to do before you hire someone. The second pitfall is super common. Sounds something like this. We just need to get more work. Then we'll figure it out. We just need more leads. We need better marketing. We need more sales. We need more revenue. We just need more work. A little over a year ago, I was talking to a business owner of a commercial general contracting firm. It was the owner and the operations manager. We'll call him Bob. And here's some of the problems they were dealing with. They had key people on their team who quit. It seemed like their field superintendents didn't have the right training. Field leaders were making bad decisions. Leaders in the office felt like they had to constantly remind the team to do things. They were constantly following up. It was, hey, do this. And then, did you do this? Make sure you do this. Constantly telling people every move to make and then having to follow up. Customers were unhappy. They actually shared that they had a customer who said, quote, "You guys look like you don't know what you're doing." And then when we got into the profit bleed analysis, they figured out that their profit bleeds, when they totaled up rework and schedule delays, missed scopes of work, it was hitting their bottom line to the tune of about $300,000 a year. Now, here's the thing about profit bleeds. They only add up if you add them up. Profit bleeds only add up if you add them up, because you don't get invoices for profit bleeds. Very few people track them very well. You don't see them on a bank statement, but these profit bleeds add up, but only if you add them up. So as we dug into their situation, I found out the root cause. And it was when Bob said this, quote, "I'm a firm believer of getting the work and figuring it out after the fact." Bob had been in construction and business for quite a while. He was not a spring chicken, but he said, "I'm a firm believer of getting the work and figuring it out after the fact." Now, remember that incredibly depressing company that studies contractor failure? It's the FMI Corp. Okay. And the FMI Corp studied hundreds of successful contractors who failed, and they found out, as they looked for themes and trends and root causes, they found that, get this, 75% of the companies who said, quote, "We'll figure out how to staff it once we get the job," end quote, ended in financial crisis. Let me say that again. 75% of the companies whose approach to staffing was, "We'll figure out how to staff it once we get the job," ended in financial crisis. These were successful contractors. So before you say yes to new work, before you think we just need to get more work, we need more leads, we need more sales, we need more revenue, we just need more work. Before you do that, ask yourself, do we already have the structure and the roles and the capacity to deliver it? You have a couple of options to answer that question. You could do a wet finger in the air, gut feeling, and think, yeah, I think we can handle it. Or you can take a more quantitative approach. You can look at your accountability chart. This is sort of like if you were to go to, let's say you bought a building, it was a one-story building, and you wanted to add another floor on top of it. You could scratch around, look at the foundations and say, yeah, they look pretty good, and give it a shot and build on top of that foundation. Or if you're a sane person, you would contact a structural engineer, do some geotechnical engineering. You would check the foundation. You would engineer this for success. And you need to do the same thing with your business. Don't just shoot from the hip. Look at, before you grow on top of the structure of your business, before you put more load on it, look at your accountability chart. Think, does the pre-construction team have capacity? How many projects can a project manager handle at one time? What does our schedule forecast look like for the next 6 months? When do we need to hire someone? When will we have a capacity constraint? And when would we need to hire somebody? If you use subcontractors, you need to look at your bench strength. Do you have the subcontractor capacity to take on more work? Or do you just have one painter who has a 2-man crew and they can only be in one place at one time? And then don't forget about working capital. Do you have the working capital to be able to sustain that additional work? So avoid this pitfall. There are plenty of lead gen, plenty of marketing agencies, plenty of sales coaches that will tell you you just need more work. You need to get out there and talk to architects. You need to run ads. You just need more work. But if you don't have the structure in place to support it, that's a terrible idea. The third pitfall that I see a lot of people stepping into is that they believe that their biggest problems are in the field. I've had people tell me, our superintendents just need better time management. We need more superintendents. We need better subcontractors, more professional subcontractors. And I'll just tell you the truth. After working with over 400 construction businesses and managing $300 million worth of projects myself, the real problem is the JETS trap. The JETS trap. And that stands for just enough to start. You may want to watch this on YouTube or watch the video for this. I'm going to describe it. So this is the old way where we have a 2 activity Gantt chart. One is pre-construction, the other is construction. And we do enough pre-construction to get started, and then we start construction, and then we continue to do what should be pre-construction activities during construction. And where we have overlap between pre-construction and construction is chaos. Where there's overlap, where we're doing pre-construction, during construction, there's chaos. Figuring out permits, chasing down selections with clients, dealing with additions and changes from clients, light fixtures, countertops, plumbing, flooring, tile. Your field teams are working down to the most minute detail, like, oh, Mrs. Customer, on your Schluter trim, do you want the brushed chrome anodized aluminum or the brushed nickel anodized aluminum? And by the way, I need to know this like right now so I can get it ordered because the tile guy shows up tomorrow. Then your field teams are supposed to keep track of all of those details, order the material, negotiate pricing, find suppliers and trade partners, manage this tornado of changes caused by all of this stuff, and manage the budget, hopefully manage the risk, which they probably may or may not be doing. Do all of this all while building the project. This is the just enough to start trap. It's chaos. And as the company scales, as a company takes on more projects, brings on more people, grows their revenue, if they just hire more people or they just get more work, this chaos grows exponentially. This chaos makes it difficult to scale a company, makes it really painful to scale a company. I would say it makes it ill-advised. And in some cases, it makes it impossible to scale a company for 3 reasons. And I've seen people grow, hit a ceiling, shrink back, grow again, just get more work. And they grow up to a certain point, hit a ceiling, shrink back. We just need to hire more people, grow, and they hit a ceiling and they shrink back. Here's why. Because this chaos has a financial impact. There are profit bleeds associated with this chaos. Just to name a few: rework, giveaways, schedule delays, opportunity cost, lost productivity because of this chaos. So there's a financial impact. If you have a leaky bucket, if you have an inefficient process like this, and you just pour more water into the leaky bucket, it just drains out faster. So there's a financial impact to this chaos. That's the first reason it's painful, difficult, not a good idea to scale a company if you're dealing with this chaos. The second reason it's a bad idea is this chaos creates a lot of stress and frustration on your team. They're working more hours. They're getting questions. Why don't you have this figured out? They're dealing with difficult conversations with clients and subcontractors, and they get stressed out. And they think, maybe there's somewhere else that has their shit together. I'll just go there. The same amount of money, maybe less, and just have less frustration. That's the second reason it's difficult, maybe even a bad idea to scale if you're dealing with this chaos. The third reason is a lot of businesses are very dependent on referrals and their reputation. As they grow and they don't have this stuff figured out, customers start to say, these guys used to be really good, but they've fallen off a little bit. I think I'm going to go with somebody else on my next project. It just seems like they got a little too big for their britches. The experience wasn't there, and it took longer than it was supposed to. Yeah, the finished product was great, but it was painful to get there. So there's a financial impact. There's stress on your team. Your reputation takes a hit, and not to mention the stress that it puts on you, the owner. Here's the new way. If you want to scale your business, this is what it needs to look like. There needs to be a well-defined pre-construction process that ends before construction begins. And one of the best things you can do is separate accountability for pre-construction from accountability for construction. This is one of the biggest levers a lot of our clients have made, that they pulled, is they realize, pre-construction is its own department. We have been missing this pre-construction phase. So one of the best things they do on their accountability chart is to create a pre-construction team or a person who is accountable for pre-construction, and that person is not on the construction team. And what do we do in between pre-construction and construction? We nail the handoff. Just like a relay race, you need a good handoff of everything they need to finish instead of just enough to start. It needs to be clear who's accountable for pre-con. You need to have a clearly defined pre-construction playbook, and it works best if you separate accountability for pre-construction from accountability for construction. There's a great interview. It's episode 309 of this podcast. It's with Wes Palmisano. He is the founder and CEO of WJ Palmisano, a $250 million a year construction company in New Orleans, I believe. And he attributes a lot of their success to their intense focus on pre-construction. One of the things he said in episode 309, he said he started spending 90% of his time on pre-construction and, quote, I realized if I put the time, energy, and effort into pre-construction, I'm able to set up the job for success and enable success for a team, get this, where their task is to execute the plan. I'm able to set the job up for success and enable success for a construction team where their task is to execute the plan. One of the problems that so many small businesses are dealing with is because they're putting their field teams in a situation where they have to create the plan and execute the plan simultaneously. You need to separate that. That is the just enough to start trap. Let's do just enough planning. We don't need to figure that out. We'll figure that out later. Let's just get started. And let's put allowances in. We don't need to make those selections right now. The customer doesn't really want to do it. So let's just get started. But if you want to set your team up for success, set it up so that your field team's task is to execute the plan. So I've worked with large, successful companies doing projects ranging up to $70 million. I've worked with companies, worked very closely with companies doing hundreds of millions of dollars of revenue per year. And here's what I've learned. A construction company that scales successfully is not actually a great construction company, okay? A construction company that scales successfully is not great at construction. They're actually a great pre-construction company. Companies that scale successfully are actually a great pre-construction company. You just can't see the pre-construction phase. The pre-construction phase is the secret profit phase of every project. The big boys obsess over it, and it is the key. It is the missing secret profit phase for small businesses. This is where it's at. If you want to grow, become a great pre-construction company first. Which leads me to the next hidden metric. I talked more about this in more detail in the previous podcast episode, but the other hidden metric that tells you how ready your company is for growth is the handoff completeness grade. If an A grade is like a well-planned bank robbery in an Ocean's 11 movie, or like a rocket launch where every contingency is covered, and an F is a couple of Post-it notes and a prayer, the classic just enough to start. Where are you today? If you were to take a good hard look at your handoff. Say 90%, if you gave your team 90% of what they needed, that would be an A. 80% of what they needed is a B. 70% of what they needed is a C. What grade would you give your handoff? That is your handoff completeness grade. And this is a metric that tells you how ready your company is for growth. So let's recap. Pitfall number 1 says we just need to hire more people. The truth is hiring more people without systems could make it worse. I interviewed John Morris years ago. He was the local chapter president of the ABC, Associated Building Contractors. And on that podcast, he said, quote, something to this effect, "People tell me all the time, I would hire 10 people today if I could," end quote. And John said, the truth is, if you hire 10 people today, it wouldn't help. It would make things worse, and it may put you out of business. So the truth is, hiring more people without the systems in place to support them could make it worse. Pitfall number 2, avoid the pitfall that the lead gen agencies and the marketing agencies and the sales coaches are saying, you just need more work. The truth is, more work without systems accelerates the problems. If you have problems, you have these little simmering fires in your business, little inefficiencies. You have these little fires that need to be put out, and more work is like throwing gasoline on those. It's an accelerant to those problems. And watch out for pitfall number 3 that says our problems are in the field. We just need better superintendents, more superintendents, better subcontractors, etc. The truth is, the field is where pre-con and handoff problems show up. It's like referred pain. You could spend a lot of time on the operations side, but if you really want to solve these problems, you've got to eliminate the just enough to start trap, and that happens with a good handoff. So to scale sustainably, here's my advice. Become a great pre-construction company. Focus on nailing the handoff from the office to the field, and get your support system in place for people before you hire them. Get that 3-legged stool in place, the accountability chart, the big 5, and your playbook to set your people up for success. And if you would like some data to determine if you're ready to scale, I created an online assessment called Is Your Business Ready to Scale? You can answer about 30 questions online and get a customized report that tells you which parts of your business are ready to handle growth, which parts of your business may be at risk if you grow, and ultimately get a report that tells you how ready is your business to scale. There's a link in the description or in the show notes, or if you're watching this video, there's a QR code you can scan and grab that assessment to fill that out. The second thing is, if you know you need some help, if you know you need to get your accountability chart in place, if you know you need the structures, if you know you need a pre-construction playbook, if you know you need help, you're tired of DIYing it, you're tired of trying to figure this out yourself, the next step would be to book a business evaluation call with my team. We'll get on a 30-minute call, evaluate your business. We'll identify the number one constraint that's holding you back. We'll also see if there's hidden profit in your business. A lot of people want to scale so that their business is more profitable. They want more profit, so they think they have to scale. But what if you could be more profitable without taking on more work or without hiring more people? If you're intrigued by the idea of making more profit without growing, go check out episode 426 of this podcast on how we found $400,000 of hidden profit for a custom builder who was doing $5 million in revenue a year. That's episode 426. We'll uncover the hidden profit in your business on this call, and we'll give you clarity on what you need to do next to systematize and scale. There's no sales pitch, just clarity. There's a chance we may not even talk about working together. We only work with about 30% of the people we talk to, and that's okay. If it does make sense for us to work together, we'll talk about that. If not, you'll still walk away with valuable insight about your business that you can go execute on. So there's a link in the show notes to go book your business evaluation call with my team, or if you're watching this video, you can scan the QR code on there. So take action, take the online assessment, get some data if you're thinking about scaling your business. Avoid those pitfalls we talked about. Schedule your business evaluation call with my team if you qualify. And thanks for watching. My name is Todd DeWalt from ConstructionLeadingEdge.com. Be sure to listen to and subscribe to the Construction Leading Edge podcast or our YouTube channel. And I'll see you next time.